is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation. The Nigel Farage Show.
Well, you've heard it from me over the last couple of weeks. My real concern, my worry about this decision that Boris Johnson has taken on Huawei. But I also think this, I'm going to come to that in a moment, but there is some quite good news out there, I think. And I'm joined this morning by David Davis, the former Brexit Secretary. I've been talking to the listeners about the fact we're going to get blue passports back with European Union not written on it. And I think that's quite good news. Tell us first, before we come to Huawei and your strong article in today's Mail on Sunday, how is Brexit going, David?
It's going fine. We knew that, right from the beginning, you and I have discussed this, right from the beginning, we knew that there'd be a lot of bluster out of the European Union, and we're getting that right now. But at the end of the day, the facts will out. The facts support our case. You hear them talking about, you've got to do this and that and the other to have access to the single market. And the answer is, okay, well, you've got to do things for us to have access to our market because it's bigger than yours, that sort of thing. So it's going okay. Boris has done the right thing in setting an absolute timetable. That's important, not flinching on it. He and his spokesman have done the right thing saying we're taking back control. That means we are deciding our laws, not you or European Union. And at the end of the day, I think the European Union will come to its senses. Frankly, if it doesn't, then we'll win that battle. If they want to have an economic battle, we'll win it. Because we've got a stronger economy than they have.
Isn't it remarkable? It's just 3 weeks ago that, 31st of January, and big celebrations for some, and for others, acceptance. Whether it's Tony Blair or Alistair Campbell or, I'm not sure Adonis has quite got there yet, but most people have. Poor chap won't even use a 50p coin, so he looks a bit like the Flat Earth Society. Because actually, it's very interesting, isn't it? The level of acceptance that it's happened, and we must try and make the best of this. When you look back, the last 3.5 years were pretty extraordinary, weren't they?
Yeah, they're quite hard work, I have to say.
Well, you resigned.
Yeah. Well, there are those, including Boris himself, who said to me, well, actually today it was all triggered by your resignation, the change of leadership and God knows what else. And they're probably right in that respect. But, yeah, the one thing I think that I completely mispredicted or didn't predict was the sort of ongoing, stubborn, boneheaded resistance of people to the people's decision, to the Remainers. That was the thing none of us calculated for, I think. And what that did, of course, was undermine the country's negotiating position, made the Europeans think that they could have their cake and eat it, to use a phrase, and that they could, we could keep paying, they could keep giving us instructions, but somehow we pretend we had Brexit. All those things have now dissolved. And one of the things I was never ever really worried about this threat of a second referendum. And the reason I was never worried is going around the country, of course, I had people coming up to me on public transport and so on, and very often, about 1 in 4 of them, 3 in 4 were Brexiteers saying, when we're going to get it done, Mr. Davis, but 1 in 4 were Remainers who said, look, we made a decision. Let's not mess around. I'm getting sick and tired of it. 1 or 2 Remainers saying, actually, given the way the European Union's behaved, I've changed my mind.
And yet you saw that going around the country. I certainly saw it going around the country. A lot of people in Westminster just refused to believe it. But hey, we're through it. But and of course, with politics, just because there's been a famous victory won for somebody like you who campaign hard for Brexit, there are fresh challenges. And I have to say, the piece that you've written in today's Mail on Sunday, China has spied on us for decades, stealing on an industrial scale. If you can interfere with 5G, you have the power to bring the UK to a halt. And the most devastating line of all, you say yourself, it's the worst security blunder since MI6 hired Philby, Blunt and Burgess. You're not mucking about on this, are you?
Well, no. This is a matter of national security. There is no higher importance in terms of the decisions that the that the government makes and the Prime Minister makes. And the Prime Minister is the minister who is primarily the first minister responsible for national security. That's why MI6 and MI5 and the Chiefs of Defence Staff have direct access to him. So it's a very important decision for Boris. Now, to be fair to him, he was handed a bit of a hospital pass because we started taking on Huawei back with 3G, back in the Blair years. And nobody objected then. And people were asleep at the switch through all of this. Now, 3G is bad enough, 4G is worse, but 5G is going to underpin every aspect of our lives, ranging from our entertainment. You'll be able to download a film in, 15 or 20 seconds, right through to our medical records, our traffic lights, electricity, all our utilities. All of that's going to be under the control of the 5G system. So if you're inside it, then you have a grip on the country that no foreign nation, not even an ally, should have, let alone somebody who might be opposed to us. Now, the interesting thing here, there's been lots of stuff in the papers about Trump and Trump's attitude to this, all right? Some people, maybe reasonably, say, well, this is a battle for global dominance between America and China, and they're just annoyed that we're on the wrong side of that argument. That's not the biggest issue, although I would say we should be on the side of democracy, not the totalitarian state, but by the by. The biggest issue for me is the Australian reaction to this. Now, you can't accuse Australia of that. Australia just the opposite. 40% of their exports go to China. They are very sensitive to not offending the Chinese government. And their equivalent of GCHQ did the right thing. They sat down and said, now, if we were the Chinese and we had this control of the 5G network or this involvement in the 5G network of another country, how much damage could we do? And could we be stopped? And the answers to those two questions were a hell of a lot of damage, almost infinite amounts of damage, both in terms of interference and also surveillance. But also, we couldn't be stopped. There'd be no way to stop us now. That for me was the most. When I saw that was it. As far as I was concerned, this was a wrong decision, and we have to resist it.
Now, Boris Johnson, when Boris Johnson is questioned on this, he gives firstly a technical answer about the core and the periphery, and I let's not go down there.
It's wrong, but never mind.
But no one understands this stuff. But what he said was, and this is interesting, he said, what's the alternative? And David Davis, what is the alternative to Huawei being involved with our 5G network?
Well, the first alternative is the existing companies. There's a lot of black propaganda out there. Huawei spends a lot of money on PR, which tells you that Nokia and Ericsson and Samsung are not as good as Huawei. Well, these things, they're like mobile phones. One day one's in the lead and the next day the other's in the lead, and it's backwards and forwards, whether it's Apple or Samsung or whoever. And it's just the same. Today, Huawei have got some technical advantages which would help Vodafone in London, but Ericsson have got the fastest systems in the world at the moment. The fastest 5G in the world, actual working 5G, is in America, which has got no Huawei in it at all. But other countries have done different things. Japan, also very conscious of China, is now investing. The state is giving cheap loans and tax breaks to companies developing 5G technology. Vietnam, for heaven's sake, Vietnam is creating its own 5G technology and using Nokia meanwhile. So the answer is immediately use Nokia, Ericsson, Samsung, and in the longer run, develop some proprietary technology which we are sure of. Because even the Western technologies have got bits of made in the Far East technology in it, the bits of Chinese tech here and everywhere. So to be absolutely sure, we should actually be able to have it all made in a democracy, basically.
No, I'm with you on this, and I'm back to DC tomorrow. Yeah. I'll be in America next week, and I've got some big meetings with Republican senators, congressmen, and I was there 2 weeks ago, and I was just amazed by the strength of feeling. Even Nancy Pelosi.
I say not just Republicans.
No, absolutely. Even Nancy Pelosi. So right at the moment, I see just about zero chance of a trade deal, or even the beginnings of a trade deal, going through Congress, and that worries me because that's important for us, and it's important with our Brussels negotiations. Obviously, worries about the 5G just explain 5G to people if they haven't really heard of it properly.
What 5G? Well,
Yeah,
it
absolutely.
just stands for fifth generation, and the techie bit you're talking about is it will be about 10 to 100 times faster than 4G. Depends on where you are. It's uses different bandwidths. And different ones are different speeds. The so-called millimeter bandwidths are very, very, very fast indeed. That's where the world record is held, but only operates over short distances. So it's a very complex network, mesh, if you like. Some people have got mesh Wi-Fi in their homes. It's a bit like that. A mesh of interacting intelligent nodes all around the country. So that's how it works. And it's going to be incredibly fast, and it's going to be used for everything. I mean, I'm a bit older than you. At some point or other, I'll probably have some medical condition or other. The future way of managing that, I'll have some sort of monitor. It might be a heart monitor or insulin monitor or whatever on me, which will broadcast to my base station at home, which will broadcast back to my GP. Things like that will become made possible by 5G.
It's not fourth gear to fifth gear in a car. It's a really big step change.
It's like going from an old Ford to a Ferrari.
And that's important for everyone to take on board. Now, look, if so much is at threat, and even Mark Esper, the US Defence Secretary, is suggesting that NATO may have a real problem. Intelligence sharing is a real problem. Trade deals are a real problem. And as you quite rightly say, not just the Americans, the Australians and others feeling the same way. What chance is there of getting Boris Johnson to change his mind on this?
Well, I think a reasonable chance. Obviously, some people have just given up because they think the decision's made. But look who's engaged in this. You've got people like ranging from Ian Duncan Smith through to Damien Green. It's a bit like Pelosi. It's not just one part of the party that's engaged in this. When Green and I both asked questions of Boris in PMQs a week or so ago, when I came out, every single person agreed with me. Not just normally you have one or two who say, "Oh, good question." Everybody said, "You're dead right." Not even it's just "You're dead right." Ordinary people in the street think the same, and it's a very, very big issue. So I think there's that. The second thing in this is not just the effect of Parliament, where they'll have trouble getting legislation through on this, but also the impact, not just NATO, Five Eyes. Just so your listeners know, Five Eyes is basically America, Britain, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. It's the sort of inner club of the best intelligence services or best democratic intelligence services in the world, and they operate very, very closely with each other. We've got spy network, surveillance networks across the world, and some people describe it as the NATO of the cyber age, because that's where the cyber war is fought. Now, China will have a success if we go with Huawei if it fractures the Five Eyes. And it will fracture the Five Eyes. It'll damage the cooperation. So that thing must be front and centre in Boris's mind.
So will you vote against the government on this?
If it comes down to it, yes, I will.
Okay. So I'm asking you folks, should Boris change his mind on Huawei? 0345 6060 973. And David Davis will stay and take your calls. So whether you agree, disagree, speak to David Davis. For now, it's the Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage Show, and it is 11:16.
This is